Calgary Parking Authority, is it time to pull the plug on this selling venture?
I think it's very helpful that we were asking those questions. I was pretty satisfied with the answers about the long lead time, but man, oh man, this lead time is getting very, very, very long. And so we really do have to recognize whether what we're doing is going to work, whether it's not going to work at all, whether there's a different model to sell this technology, or if there's just not as much of a market as we thought there was.
I thought this was the better mousetrap that everybody would want. What's the problem?
Well, it is a great mousetrap, and it works really well, and I know that our customers at the City of Edmonton, for example, have been very satisfied with it. So it really is a matter of whether cities, one, recognize there's a better way to do this, and two, have the capital and the ability to be able to execute on it. And there are many different jurisdictional issues, there are many different legal issues, I understand, but that is a good question that we should ask the board of the Calgary Parking Authority to come back to us on.
They're making a new app, but I haven't heard much about that. Do you think they should be doing more city-style engagement on that stuff? I'm sure Calgarians have a lot of good ideas, myself included, on how to improve that app.
I would really encourage anybody who has some great ideas to contact the Parking Authority, and that is a great suggestion for them.
Do you have an understanding of why the CPA wants such an increase in administration?
I don't. I really don't. I thought the answer was not as specific as I would like. I always want more specific answers. So I'm looking forward to seeing some more detail on that.
What's the latest on the yard installation on 4th Street?
I don't have anything new for you. Since that came out yesterday, I asked that an investigation be launched. Apparently that had already been done by the time I asked for it, being sitting in council. So we'll get back to the artist, we'll get back to the folks who have concerns and figure out what happened there.
Can you just take us back to 2015 in terms of the process of finding that artist?
I can't, I really don't know. So we will find out more and get back to you. Sorry, I'm not very helpful today. Yes.
Have you had a chance to look at it to give Calgary a tea?
Why do people always ask me this question when I've been in council all day?
Yesterday, do you have
It was a tweet.
any response to the fact that they're saying Calgary is the lowest graded across the country?
Yeah, we typically have the highest grade across the country, but of course we're in the end of a 4-year budget cycle. So I suspect what happened here is they only looked at the adjustment document instead of the whole big budget document for the whole 4 years. So I suspect this is just a technical thing. Regardless, next year we start all over again, so we'll be back up to that same level of information that has consistently got us awards from finance managers for our transparency. All right, thank you.
What do you think of this idea of Calgary Transit partnering with Uber for this last mile?
It's not necessarily Uber, but the last mile question is one that has perplexed transit systems for a long time. It's the most expensive part of the program. So for example, I remember when I was a daily transit rider some years ago, we had a dial stop program, which was essentially, allowing transit to be much more flexible in the evenings. Prior to that, there was many decades ago, there was a transit on demand program in the evening, where basically you would phone instead of having regular buses run from the train stations to your home. You would phone and a bus would come and get you. So given new technologies like Car2Go, like Uber, and others, there may well be an opportunity to think about that last mile in a different way. And as you heard, transit authorities across North America are experimenting with that now.
What are your thoughts on this, now that they're taking down the underpass art? What are your thoughts on how this may or may not reflect on the public art program as a whole?
This particular one I don't think is really about the public art program, because we actually have to trust the people with whom we contract, and certainly there is a contract talking about intellectual property and so on that every artist signs. So, excuse me, so while it might be fun to pile this on to the sins of the public art program, I think this particular one is probably the blame belongs somewhere else.
Where does that lie?
Next question. There is an investigation happening, and I will be better able to answer that question later.
So now that the public has the details on the transit cuts, are there elements of the specific details that concern you, or do you think they've basically plucked the low-hanging fruit?
I think they've done a pretty good job on low-impact stuff. Anytime someone's bus route changes, it's going to hurt people in some way. But going from 30 to 35 minutes, especially with real-time tracking on the transit app, people can plan their day. They just have to have that data in order to do it.
the
What
airport.
about some that are 30 to 60 minutes, some that aren't just as long?
Yeah, those are pretty low ridership. And when I was a daily transit commuter, right, I took a bus that only ran once an hour in the evenings, and it just meant I had to plan my day to make sure that I was able to catch that bus. And once in a while you miss it, which is a huge pain, and you shake your fist at the clouds. But especially with the real-time app, and if the real-time app works well, it actually gives people the ability to plan the origination of their trip. And transit riders are very resilient. They really are able to plan, especially if you're doing shift work and you know that you're taking it off peak. You're very good at figuring out when to be there. If we were actually canceling service so that people who were on shift work just didn't have a bus to take, that would be a much bigger concern.
So you're not worried about this cannibalizing, like as Councillor Davison said, people just say, I'm going to pick up.
Yeah, certainly transit is an if you build it, they will come scenario. And if you cut it too much, people will stop taking it. And you absolutely will get a vicious circle. But looking at the details of this, these hours, these 40,000 or so hours, I don't see that happening.
Are you hearing of any alternate proposals or anybody on council thinking let's take something off the table on those? Or?
I am not.
It doesn't have to be a all or nothing. Are you going to pick level 1 or level 2 cuts when you make your decision, or will there be some?
I'm satisfied with level 1 and level 2. Councillors would, if they want to, could make amendments to pick off one route at a time, but they probably have to have a really good explanation for why they know more than administration in terms of what the least harm is here.
So is the 93 the one you had issues with? You mentioned that yesterday.
The number 2 and the number 93, and those questions were answered to my satisfaction today. Thank you.
What about the money? Do you want it back?
Let's see what the investigation comes out with. Let's see what the legal issues come up with, and then we will sort that out. We have to remember, too, that as always with public art issues, very little of the art money goes to the artist. Most of it goes to the contractors who put it up and took it down.
Well, it's only photographs. I mean, it's not like it's building it.
What was your reaction to the trailer yesterday? You missed it too. Police commission, and it also.
I feel like Ms. Kingbell had a very good response to my reaction yesterday. I wasn't very happy. So I called upon city administration to run a quick investigation, and they're at it now.
You think the city was going to suffer international black eye on this?
No, I don't think so. As much as there has been some drama with the public art program, this particular one, you'd have a lot of trouble blaming this on the city.
No, I realize that, but the city got had, shall we say.
Let's wait for the investigation.
Don't you want your 20 grand back?
Let's wait for the investigation.
That's all I got.
Thanks. You don't want to talk about transit cuts to Route 93? It's so interesting.
Your reaction to transit cuts.
Now that I've asked questions about them, I think I'm satisfied with them. Certainly they will increase some inconvenience to customers, but we have to always make this balance work. I know from what I'm hearing around the council table, many councillors are interested in adding back these various cuts. That's their prerogative, but I believe that it makes an organization work more efficiently if you actually do ask them to stay on their toes all the time.
How is that adding back the transit cuts or fire or skating? How is that going to work in all the cities?
Precisely.
Tax increase goes up.
That's just it. The taxes would have to go up unless there were commensurate cuts found in other places. And it would be, and I have not heard one single example from council about another cut that they would like to propose beyond what's in the book now.
So based on the conversations the past 2 days, are you expecting lots of
Yeah, I'm surprised by that. I would not have expected that at the beginning of deliberations yesterday, but I've been listening, as I always do, very closely to the conversation, and it sure sounds like people are uncomfortable. But to give you an example, there's a question of, will this particular cut impact at-risk youth? But what I heard was that even if that cut was made, the workload per probation officer would be lower than it was in 2013. So for me, that's not a hard one to agree with.
So this takes us back to an earlier question, which is what do you think the tolerance of Calgary is for tax increase above 3%?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to speak to the tolerance of Calgarians for it because council will do what council will do. I think the question is, what is council's tolerance? And the last council said to administration to come back with something between 0 and 2%. Administration came back with essentially 0%. It's very clear that council has an appetite to add the money for the police, which takes us just sub 1% on 2018. And I think that is probably yeah, you know, because we have to remember that there's money from previous years too. As I said, when I proposed the 1.5 rebate last year at this time, I said, look, this is about the economic downturn. And if council has an appetite to continue that rebate through the economic downturn, we can find the funds to do it. I haven't actually heard a lot of appetite for that. I think most councillors are saying, look, let's be honest with people and bake things in instead of doing these one-time rebates. So. It's going to be the subject of a lot of good discussion, I think, going forward. I think what was interesting in Calgary Fire's questions is a lot of the things they're suggesting are to require negotiations with other parties. And so I hope that those negotiations will be successful. If they're not successful, then a year from now, council will be looking at a negative variance and trying to figure out how to manage that.